in our upcoming programs as well, inshallah. Since we have already falling short of time, we'll start as soon as possible, inshallah. So we are absolutely honored to have our guest speaker for today, Professor Dr. G. Hussain Rasool. Our speaker holds the degree of Doctor of Philosophy from the University of London, St. George's Medical College. Currently, he is the Dean of Liberal Arts and Science, Head of the Department of Psychology at International Open University, and also Professor of Islamic Psychology at Rifa International University. MashaAllah. Now I would request and welcome Dr. G. Hussain Rasool to comment today's webinar. Inshallah, Jazakallahu khair.
Thank you, Sister Zarakal Khair. Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته يوم الدين قال ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Straight to thank you anyway for inviting me, and we should do the eulogy later on. We need to get focused on it because of my time factor. We're going to focus on cognitive dissonance. And I think when I first heard that word years ago, I used to get, a bit fear about it. It's a big word, cognitive dissonance. Anyway, we shall try to explain it, but try to relate it to from an Islamic perspective. Now, when we talk about cognitive dissonance, it's a very powerful feeling. It's a feeling we all have. It's like facing reality. And that reality tend to contradict our worldview. That makes sense later on. We all have our own worldview. But when we see the reality of us, it doesn't match. There's a mismatch between what we see and also, what we feel, what we think, and so forth. So, it doesn't matter how objective or rational, the reality is. We still have that dissonance. We still have that uncomfortable feeling. We still have that anxiety sometimes anyway. It's like sometimes, all of us have been through it and encounter it in our, social intercourse with other people. Is, for example, when you talk to somebody and they have different views about it. Of course, everybody have different worldview. That's what it's about. And then, after talking about it, the conversation, they ask you, well, maybe you should think about what I said. By saying that, they're saying to you, maybe you don't agree with my reality, with my worldview, and because of cognitive dissonance, and that's what I'm asking you to reflect on it. So they want you to reflect on and consider their own particular point of view. So as human beings, we have our lives, it's not in order. Although we tend to like order in our lives, but the world is chaotic at times anyway, and because so many things happenings, and and so sometimes we're not keen to explore areas that bring chaos or bring anxiety or bring, we're not in the comforting zone. If we're outside the comforting zone, which means, dealing with dissonance, then we start, having anxiety. So our core belief itself is very much closely linked with our sense of identity. So when we hold this core belief, and this belief tend to get, it's very strong, this belief anyway. And when we are presented with evidence that work against that particular belief we hold, then it creates dissonance. It creates some sort of problem. It creates some sort of uncomfortable. It's difficult for us to accept, any new or different information anyway. Partly because, one, it challenges our sense of who we are, our own identity. And secondly, the presentation of conflicting evidence or information create a feeling of uncomfortable. And that's what we mean by dissonance. We shall come back to the thing again. Let's move on. Right. So the world, the whole, what I said about the whole world, is dissonance because, our own reality and the reality of other people are different. So there's always some sort of, uncomfortable at dissonance. Of course, from Islamic point of view, from a Muslim point of view, we have a lot of dissonance. And the main problem with these is that because migration is one of the biggest things that causes dissonance. Yeah. Migration, people migrating, Muslim migrating because of civil war, but for all sorts of reasons, they migrate from their own country, and then they go to more or less the Western world, the Western country. Of course, also, in addition, we are fragmented, in terms of and disconnected from the reality of existence, which means that we live a reality, the dunya reality, but we don't live the akhirah reality. And for Muslim, we need to live. We're living basically for the hereafter. So there's a spiritual dissonance about it. I made some sort of diagram to show how sometimes because the self, our identity, and if that dissonance, if basically if we experience when you experience dissonance, the first impulse is to reject the idea of belief, all right? The belief on the bottom there. And the belief doesn't fit our experience. So what we believe in doesn't, synchronize with what we see, what we experience, the way we feel, the way we think and but the way we feel and see things is different from what we believe. And that creates dissonance. But it's all part of the self, the naf, the identity. I'm trying to use more psychological word than Islamic word. Let's move on. I don't want to spend too much time on this. What am I doing now? Okay. Right. Now, as we know, if we look at a bit of pure psychology, Festinger, who developed this theory in 1957, and according to him, it occurs when people thought and feeling are inconsistent. The way we think, the way we feel are separated, are different. Yeah. So, and that creates some inconsistency in our behavior, which make us feel, not very comfortable. We're outside what I said before, our comfort zone. And that disharmonious feeling is what is cognitive dissonance. So that was developed by Festinger. And he talked about, let's move that a little bit up there. He talked about the presence gives rise to pressure. That pressure is the anxiety. Yeah. And what do? We in a way, we could say it's conflict. When we have dissonance, we have conflict. We don't know what to do because the way we feel and the way we think or the way we see, experience, think are very different. So the strength of the pressure to read is function of magnitude of dissonance. So in a way, people, we have to, because what we try to do is try to reduce the anxiety. It's try to reduce the dissonance. We do that by all sorts of strategies, and either cognitive or the means as well. And that is cognitive dissonance. So definition is when it's the discomfort you feel when something is against your belief. There's no synchronization between what I believe and what I feel. So discomfort may occur, and also sometimes because of that, we tend to alter our attitude. We alter our belief, or we alter our behavior. Can you see? So, to fit in, so that we don't have dissonance, we have resonance, we tend to alter these. The way to reduce, for some of us, it's not always a positive coping strategy. The way we do it, we try to change our belief system or our behavior or attitude anyway to change. Now, this is something different, but I'm just thought, dissonance is not only about cognitive. It's about educational dissonance, but also spiritual. We won't have time to go for it. But, what we're going to focus on is basically the spiritual and the cognitive rather than educational dissonance. So we have, as Muslims, it was part of a lecture I gave some time ago about, that we have dissonance in those particular areas. Let's move on. Now, is it part of human nature? Of course it is, because the reality of experience is dissonance. As I said in the introduction, the way I see the world, which is my worldview, and the way you see the world is different. So of course there's going to be conflict, there's going to be dissonance. Now sometimes you have to try to convince me to believe what you believe, or by presenting facts. Sometimes by presenting facts, sometimes you can see in smoking behavior, even by presenting facts or evidence, people don't still change their behavior because of that dissonance anyway. So it's part of human nature, it's part of living, it's part of life, and it's you can't get away with it, and the discomfort's always going to be there, because the conflict between our belief and our thought and deeds, and also what we do as human. It's a bit like biology, what they call in biology is called homeostasis. Homeostasis means that we have an equilibrium. It's like a thermostat in our body that reduces our temperature when the body too hot and so on. So we have that homeostasis, that psychological homeostasis. I'm inventing new words there. That equilibrium for us to change balance, because we cannot live in anxiety all the time. We can't live, although we face with it, but we have to try to reduce the dissonance as much as we can. So by doing that, we try to find some sort of balance or equilibrium. So of course, it's part of nature. You're going to see later on that in terms of trial and tribulation is a form of cognitive dissonance. So what causes it? Lots of it. We won't have time to go through all of it. Life events, what they call rite de passage, from birth to death, getting married, buying a new car. I mean, we make all sorts of excuses, why we need to buy this car, not the other one. This causes dissonance. A lot of things. So throughout a life event, what they call the rite de passage, from birth to death, there's life events that cause dissonance. The way we make decisions, like I say, whether I'm going to buy this dress, whether I'm going to buy this car, whether I'm going to buy this new, a Samsung Notebook 20, whatever it is, we try it causes dissonance, because one is expensive, the other one we need to have this because part of our, fashion or whatever it is. So there's always this cultural belief, because the thing we believe and the thing we see, that happened with migrants. They go to a house, they go to the country, and the attitude they have, the belief, the values they have, they find in the host country is very different, and that causes conflict, and that's dissonance. The social environment, and also other things to do with needs. But the most important, the biggest dissonance is transition, what I call transition, or moving to another country. It's migration, especially among Muslims, because when you go to live in another country, you leave your own particular culture back. You carry your cultural baggage with you, but also your religious belief. And this, when you go to the host country, you find that, there's problem there. They are different. Their values different. They tend to have a sort of different type of society. And that causes dissonance. Anyway, we won't have time to go through thoroughly, just to, these are some, there's of course other causes as well. Now, what are Muslims? What happened? Why there's dissonance in Muslims? Acculturation, adopting Western values. You find that in lots of ways. One example, you find that, at one time, anorexia nervosa, for example, or bulimia nervosa, eating disorders, was very uncommon among Muslims, girls, and men as well, of course. But that's now it's very common. It's very common. While I was working in Pakistan, I think they used to have one person, one or two people every day in one of the clinic in Islamabad. So, so it's happening. It's happening even in Muslim country in terms of eating disorders. Such to do with acculturation, because what we're trying to do to adopt, different value system, different belief system, different things, to be part of, of the modern world, the new world, and that goes that. We live, Muslim society tend to be collective society, not individualistic. Western society tend to be individualistic. So you can see, because the ummah, is very important, not the individual, not the individual person. Individuality is not really considered to be to be out. It's happening. It's not acceptable. But we live in a collective society. We have there's different values between collective society and individual society. Identification with other people, in terms of fashion, in terms of eating habits, in terms of what we watch on television, everything else, because we want to be part, of the modern trend. And also there's theological misunderstanding. Some people tend to, especially, maybe I'm generalizing them, new convert, new revert, the word should be said, or some people, they try to, they misunderstand completely, especially if they go online, and there's a lot of website where people make their own tafsir there. You have to be very careful, and by trying to get all your information from internet. Not all of them are safe anyway, from my point of view. Anyway, that's still, we're going to come back to theological misunderstanding later on. But also, sexuality Islam, to do with, again, that's a subject in itself. We wrote a book it's come out this year anyway, on sexuality from Islamic perspective. We look at sexuality from the Quran and Sunnah. There's so much, in the Quran about sexuality, and it's not a taboo in Islam. We should be talking about it. But here we're talking here, what I was mentioning here is about homosexuality and things like that, gender. Some people say, right, I can be lesbian, but I can still pray. So, I mean, there's a lot of things, we won't have time to go for it, but I'm saying all these can cause psychological issues as well. And also misunderstanding that goes to theological misunderstanding, basically misunderstanding and ignorance in Islamic creed, in Aqidah. And that sometimes goes that. So the biggest thing is, especially cognitive dissonance, is amplified when the Muslim immigrant try to integrate into Western society and adopting values. They don't have to be immigrant. They could be in their own country, but because of mass media, because of, I mean, for example, when I look at advertisement in Indian, Indian subcontinent, you find, all these white, and attractive women, and basically not red. I mean, they're modestly dressed, but nevertheless, this is a sort of, acculturation what the West want to behave in a way. So such cognitive dissonance come from the Islamic doctrine, that which is being in stark opposition to the values held by Western society. So here you have a belief, system of belief in terms of modesty, haya, and so forth, and then you have a society which is liberal and so forth, and you get conflict of values. Okay, I just saw this when I was researching this paper. Just saw that, on the website, they say the Sunnah does not fit in society. They understand we are not made for society. We're made for Jannah. So it's a very different way of looking at the world. Just move on. Now, why I put this there? Because I was saying our internalization, our values, because we wanted, in order to reduce our dissonance, if we're an immigrant or even in our own country, we try to behave like other people. And the famous, Ibn Majah hadith, which is authentic hadith, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, you will follow the ways of those who came before you. Arm length by length, forearm length by forearm, so forth, handspan by handspan, even until they enter the law. A whole of Mastigua, which is a type of lizard fungus, you will enter it too. They say, oh, Messenger of Allah, you mean the Jews? And Christians say yes. Who else? So basically, this is what we call the lizard hole from Malik Badri, whose famous paper, classical paper in 1969. It's like, whatever the Christian and Jews do, we tend to follow them anyway. And they won't be satisfied until you become like them. This is another thing as well. So that's why I put that there, which means that because part of acculturation is people like what they call integrated Muslim. Integrated Muslim, they love it. You find them on newspaper and so forth. The other one who the West love, because they are integrated, and if you pray, you are a fundamentalist. Anyway, this is the different point of view we have. Anyway, let's move on. So sometimes people have, according to Eunice, there's a nice paper, I think, that we have unattainable perfection. That's very important because, people say, right, I pray, I do my Ramadan, I do my namaz, I do my salat, but I'm still, why do I still keep sinning, Why can't I properly focus on, So sometimes people try to, attain what they call all or nothing phenomenon, yeah. And also the guilt people have in terms of, right, sinning makes one bad Muslim. But we are children of Adam. This is in the Quran. Children of Adam are bound to make mistake, make errors. The important thing is, is to try to make tawbah. And so sinning is part of human nature. I'm not saying that you're sinning the same thing all the time, although, there's a point, it all depends on Allah's mercy. But, we cannot, be perfect. I mean, although we have a sort of strive to have ihsan, which is perfection in what we do, but nevertheless, we always think nowadays, I'm still trying to refine the way I pray, because you never stop learning. You never stop learning about refining. So some people are to perfection the ibadah. They try to attain perfection, and that causes dissonance. We cannot. We try. I mean, the important is the intention. We know that from An-Nawawi hadith that intentions is precede action. So if our intention to pray and we make mistakes in what we do, Allah would forgive us, because our intention was pure and sincere. Allah would decide. So sometimes perfection is the battle can cause also a problem, equally to scrupulosity, or in the word OCD, obsessional compulsive disorders, what we call wash al-kari, or depending whether it's in ibadah, whether it's taqida, or also it is in tahara, which is purification. Anyway, this is in what my book I wrote about this. Anyway, so sometimes too much we try to attain too much perfections anyway, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all. And of course, by saying sometimes one is undoubtedly a terrible Muslim. So that's why some people say, if I was a true Muslim, or if I was a true believer, I would be committing the same sin all the time. But then we are children of Adam, as long as we make astaghfirullah, we make tawbah, and so forth. And this is from Sahih Muslim, and Abu Hurairah, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam quote, by him whose hand is my life, if you are not commit sin, Allah would sweep you out of the existence. He would replace you with those people who would commit sins and seek forgiveness from Allah, and He would have pardoned them. Which means that, if you didn't commit sin, Allah would have taken you as a nation and replaced somebody who would. This is authentic hadith, from Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So we cannot be sinless. But we try to avoid it. But we are children of Adam, alayhi salam. We are all prone to commit errors and sins. Now, when we have spiritual dissonance, I just want to briefly mention that is because, again, this is what we believe and what we do. Okay, this cognitive dissonance, what we believe. We all say every day, most of us, Kul Allahu Ahad, Allah is one, Ahad. In Arabic, we don't say Wahid is one, but we don't say Wahid but Ahad is unity, one, only one. This is not only to apply to Allah. So we say that all the time, because it's a surah, and of course our main source of knowledge basically is from Quran, and that leads to Tawheed. But what happened? We say that every day, but then what happened is we have to do all sorts of things. People talk about mindfulness. People want to do hypnotherapy. People want to do, all sorts of things, which on one hand, or yoga, another thing that people do. I'm not saying that I didn't make fatwa on them. There are a lot of scholars, that, very brilliant scholars who said these are haram. Yeah. Personally, a lot of people say mindfulness is okay. Personally, I don't anyway. What the point? Again, we are following the lizard hole. Why do what other people are doing? You could say, you could say, astaghfirullah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah. Is that the same thing? Why do you need to go and do yoga? And say, I have a lot of my own family members who used to say, "Oh, I did yoga because of the exercise." Of course, yeah, but it's not the exercise. It's what behind it. It's the theology behind it. That's dissonance. On one hand we say Kul Wallahu Ahad. On the other hand we associate Allah with partners. There you are. This is dissonance, and we do that all the time. Especially psychologists, even in Pakistan, I told them, these are haram, and reflexology, hypnotherapy, mindfulness, all these, are considered haram. Of course, there are a lot of complement therapies, that's very useful, that's acceptable, that's part of, acceptable within the Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Anyway, and this is spiritual dissonance. Saying Wahad, Allah is one. On the other hand, we're practicing, haram thing, and and this is cognitive belief. The other things we have is in terms of cognition is we have deviant behaviors, because our actual behavior is not synchronizing with our Aqidah framework, and one of the deviant behavior is addictive behavior from all sorts of problems, from shisha smoking, and even codependency as well. This is a whole lecture in itself. But what I'm trying to show is that sometimes because of cognitive dissonance, we tend to fall into the trap of addictions anyway. Okay. Trying to move, got the wrong slide there. Now, one good example of cognitive dissonance, I always throw that, is when people smoking. I'm a smoker. I know. On the other hand, I keep hearing that smoking causes cancer. And if you apply it in the sort of Islamic way, for shisha, people smoke shisha. No, it's not haram. I mean, any smokers would tell you that, they find all sorts of excuse to say that it's not haram. No, it's makruh. It's makruh, it's not haram. It's not recommended, but it's not haram. And then probably when they give up smoking, then they say, oh no, it's haram. But all the different scholars from all the different schools, whether it's Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, Hanafi, they all believe that, smoking, whatever it is, anything that befogs your mind, anything that intoxicates you, anything that does what I call zulm on yourself, self-harm. Because even shisha is worse than smoking. It's like smoking 50 cigarettes in one go. Other people don't see it anyway. I mean, I don't say that. The WHO, say that anyway. So again, we have cognitive dissonance in what we believe. We follow the Sharia, and at the same time, our behavior is different. And that's trial and tribulation. Is part of that cognitive dissonance. And in the sense that, we go, because these sometimes, when we go to testing, Allah testing us all the time. And because of that, sometimes we lose hope. Sometimes, we try to say, why me? I do everything good, and, I pray and do something else. Why can't I get married? Whilst other people who are bad get married. So again, this is dissonance, because Allah is testing us as well. This is Surah Baqarah, where you're familiar with it. And that, Allah said, in Surah Baqarah, you're going to be tested. You're going to lose. You're going to fear anger. Your wealth, your life, your fruits, your risk, and good tidings to those who have sabr, good tidings to those who have patience, because patience is a virtue. What I'm trying to show is that trial and tribulation can create cognitive dissonance in us, or spiritual dissonance. And people would say, I pray and I fast, I stay away from haram, and I'm punished for my deeds. Why me? Again, this type of behavior, this type of thinking, of thought process, frame, these tend to lead us sometimes to dissonance, and sometimes may have said, lead us to certain disbelief or disbelief in them. We know from Surah from Hadith, Sahih Bukhari, Allah said, Prophet Sallallahu said, if Allah intend good for someone, then He afflict them with trial. So we are not the only one who get trial and tribulation. The others get. Let's move to the next one. I took that from a website. While I was researching for that, it's a lot of spelling mistake. I put it exactly what the person is trying to say. I just read it. I smoke both weed, which is slang for ganja, marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it. But, it's weed. That's ganja or marijuana. And bang, something like anyway, and cigarettes. So how can I believe in God's mercy while I'm actively breaking His rules? In other words, I want to believe that everything is going to be okay because I have faith. Iman is there. And I do have my faraid. Faraid is applied, I don't know, in the sense, faraid is applied for legal things to do with inheritance. I don't know why he put faraid there, but anyway, it means laws anyway, or Sharia. I've duped for my Sharia, whatever we followed, but I still can't shake these addictions anyway. Again, dissonance, what you believe and what you do. I mean, that's happened because that's a normal thing people have, you're making mistake, but you still have to carry on praying, fast, do Hajj, do everything else, because that's the way it is. So this was taken exactly from, word for word from somebody about their dissonance. But we know from according to Yunus that there's no theological ground to assume that being good absolves you from being tested. Not because you're good, you do everything you can not to be tested. The people who were most tested were the prophets, And Prophet Muhammad said, I heard the Prophet say, there's nothing left in this world except trial and tribulation. And the prophets were the worst. Prophet Muhammad before dying, he suffered a lot, a lot of trial, a lot of tribulation. So they were good. They were perfect. Prophet Muhammad was a perfect human being. He had this trial and tribulation as well. So we are mere mortal. And, so anyway, we know that from Surah Baqarah, Allah said about that Allah does never put a heavy burden on you more than you can hold on, that can bear. So Allah knows our capacity, but trial and tribulation is part of living, and that causes dissonance. Like I said, this is called dissonance because it may make us change things anyway. Oops, I'm moving too fast now. Right, I think because of the time factor, I don't know what the time is. Okay. I want to have a look at this action we take sometimes, This is to do with smoking, could be anything. So believe in smoking, you have cognitive dissonance. You know that smoking is unhealthy, okay? Cognitive dissonance, which is and present tension, state awareness that believed action is unconscious. Then I smoke cigarette to relieve that dissonance. I carry on. Or I change my belief. Although the evidence that smoking, there's a high correlation between smoking and cancer. Nevertheless, I would say, but not all, not all the evidence are conclusive. Or I know somebody who smoked and live for 90 years. So you always try to find some excuse, some rationalization, which is our belief, so that we can carry on smoking. Or if we change, if we really find a solution, we can say, right, we change our behavior. Cigarettes are unhealthy. I have the information now. There's evidence such that I don't want to smoke. But that's there's motivation, there's readiness to change, there's a lot of factors involved in it, but this is sort of model on how, sometimes cognitive dissonance, we can change either the action, or we change our belief to suit our particular behavior. Now, in order to overcome that, we need to have it. I mean, for us Muslims, our heart is the most important qalb, most important part of the soul, part of the self, anyway. And we need to find out, identify the root of my dissonance. Like I say, although we're going to have a dissonance all the time, but nevertheless, sometimes if that's causing too much harm, then you have to make tawbah. You have to resist temptation. You have to go through purification of the soul. That's not a big deal. That's doing exactly what the Prophet Muhammad tells us to do, inform us what to do. Refocus on harmony, praise and worship Allah. And also, at the end, we need to rely on Allah, tawakkul, because, we need to tie our camel, like the hadith said. At the same time, we need to, we don't try not to do anything. We need to do something. At the same time, trust in Allah, have tawakkul on Allah. Now, sometimes to overcome dissonance, we can change information, then coming in new information, like I say, because if you want to carry on smoking, we are saying, we don't want, these facts are not right, And, now people are having problem with COVID-19, pandemic, and, they're saying, right, the mask is not useful. You don't want to wear mask, So people are changing the information in order to change the behavior. Or sometimes we can change our course of action. Either we reject the new information, we say there's not evidence, or we stop. And sometimes we have new thoughts. That's another thing. We try to find new excuse or new thoughts or new rationalization to carry on. Or sometimes, we travelize, make the whole thing less serious. Now, what's interesting is some couple of studies which I thought I mentioned from research that pointed out that, a quote from Yalom, which is, a quote, learning or change is likely to occur when the individual in a state of dissonance acts and reduce that dissonance. So basically, this is the period when you can change, but change in the right direction. So according to him, dissonance creates a state of psychological, like some sort of discomfort. We know that. Some sort of propels. It's like motivation. It's a way, in a way you could say, like it gives us some sort of, a motivation to change, to make everything more or less resonance or consonant state. Another one from Cambridge and Ashworth, it talk about, psychological analogy dissonance. So the psychological impact become a motivating factor. The whole aspect, the whole effect of dissonance give us some sort of motivating factor. And I've tried to encapsulate it in this particular figure, is that we are cognitive, and that give us about, and then you can say from there you can go and try to purify your soul. Tazkiyah nafs. I haven't thought too much about that. I just done it a while ago, yesterday or something like that, but it's just something that we can write about, inshallah, later. So again here, using cognitive dissonance as a motivating factor. That's a positive way, but also we can use it as a demotivating factor in more or less, adopting all sorts of negative frame of reference or thought. Anyway. And you can see, just like I'm confused, but what the reason why I'm putting there is that you can see that, at the bottom, the inconsistency anxiety. So by adding a new consonant, but using element into it, right? So why not reducing that inconsistency and anxiety by doing ibadat? By doing zikr, by being, say subhanallah, alhamdulillah, zikr, whatever you want, pray nafil, read the Quran, learn Arabic, whatever it is. So what I'm trying to say is that in order to reduce that sometimes, we can add something to it, add a new consonant to it, to add a buffer, and that will reduce our anxiety. And also for us Muslims, that would prepare us for akhirah. rather than this particular dunya. Now, I'm not going to have time to go through it because of this time factor. I want to discuss a few, discussion rather. And I think basically what we try to attain, as you know, there are three different types of nafs, and we won't have time to get. This is the mutmaina, which is a soul at peace, serenity, which is sakina. Sakina means serenity and tranquility. And this is naf what we try to work on, is that, this is naf where we at peace ourselves, and this is nafs that that make us in tranquility, and there's a lot of verses of Quran that support that anyway. Now, I mean, this is just something which what our dilemma in Muslim psychology, because all of you doing psychology, otherwise you won't be here. Are we still in the lizard hole? Yes, after 60 years from Badri, right, talking about lizard hole in 1969, we're still suffering from it, And in Pakistan, where I worked, I'm still working, but I'm just saying, being there when I was, a lot of psychologists there are still in lizard hole anyway. They're still using American-based, for example, assessment, and I mean, it's only there. I'm not doing it in Pakistan, but it could be in India, it could be anywhere else. Anyway, it's Middle East as well. This is probably worse anyway, and they still use a lot of, probably not validated, reliable, American tests, which is nothing to do with the local population anyway. So unless you start, developing your own tests, it's a dilemma of psychology. Do we still favor dissonance? Yeah, we still favor, but because we get conflict between, trying to be westernized at the same time to trying to keep our own particular akida on. Again, psychology education program, of course, is very westernized, it hasn't changed, Freud is the biggest, sort of god there anyway, and maybe some of these people should be called Muslim Freud anyway. And are we remain unconscious? Yes, of course, we still remain unconscious incompetence in some immunologists. And basically, again, I think I repeat myself on top, is that we have problem with spiritual dissonance. I know I would stop now, but finally, anyway, conclusion that, it's part of parcel of faith, yeah. We're always going to have conflict, if we misinterpret our theological understanding, if we misinterpret the Quran, we take it literally, whatever it is, or ibadah we do. So that always is going to be always there. Trial and tribulation always create cognition in us. And this discomfort, we have to try to get rid of it. Why not replace this discomfort with something positive, like, purification of the soul and reaching the state of mutmainah in the contented soul. And I'll stop there and take some, what's happened? Okay, this is the end of presentation. So I would take some question, and maybe the sister can direct that. If you can't speak, I suppose you can really write your question. Let me see where there's what is this, a participant? Okay, no, I don't want participant. I want chat. Where's the chat box? Okay, can the sister would repeat the question for me? I I got the chat anyway. Okay. Okay, yes, I remember you. Assalamu alaikum anyway. Good to see you. Anyway, hope you're well. Inshallah. Any questions anyway? I know this is a very this is a very a glimpse, of things, because in 40 minutes or less, we can do much. It's just an introduction to things. I think, inshallah, we can do something a bit deeper, a bit more. Sort of. This is just an overview of things. So you can type your message, please. You can type your message. You can type your question. I mean, Excuse me, I just want to drink some water. one of the reasons why I have to leave you as well, because I have to pray Maghrib prayer. Maghrib prayer is already 1 hour. I couldn't pray Maghrib because Maghrib was not ready yet when I came and talked to you. So it's Maghrib now. So I cannot spend too much time. Otherwise, I'm going to Isha prayer and no problem. Yeah. I'm wondering if this, I'm just reading the question in case people. So I'm just wondering if the soul are struggling with sinning lifestyle when the stars to remind them of coming punishment about how does one refrain from lapsing with the support is between. I mean, again, we need to see, that lockdown, the self lockdown, whatever it is, as as an opportunity for us to try to grow, and things never going to be the same. People say, things going to change. And yeah, it has changed already. It has changed us, as human being. It has changed the whole environment we live in. Things never going to be the same. And I think during the lockdown from different countries, this was in a way some people can see it as punishment, but also same time, a lot of scholars would say no, it's not punishment. It's like a warning, for people, and of course, relapsing is part of the whole process. We call lapse and relapse. If you're ill, whatever it is, always the key. But then, that's why, like Imam Tahawi said, we always have to have hope. As a Muslim, we always have hope, because hope in Allah. If we don't, then it's dangerous, because we need to have hope that that there's always, we're going through it. It's the hadith of prick of the thorn. The more the prick of the thorn reduces our sin. What we're going through, maybe is that what Allah wanted to test us. But we can't do. After more, very strange before I had to start with Muslim and Islamic Yom. How would you get Muslim aspiring in this religion? No, of course not. No, Islamic psychology does not reject evidence-based practice. No, of course, if in your country you can't do, Islamic psychology, then you probably have to do it. But then you have no choice, because sometimes you have to have those qualifications to be able to work. So no, you can't train them. But at the same time, if there's a choice, then you have to do some sort of, but you can do it yourself anyway. Yeah, hope and fears. Yeah. How can one bring out addiction and control despite knowing
excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Pardon me for interrupting. Since we are falling short of time, I'll be forwarding all the questions regarding this session to you via mail, inshallah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
But
okay,
again,
Jazakallah khair, sir.
Next time we could do it, just say, instead of doing a talk, we can just do question and answer session. That would be as useful as well.
Okay, inshallah, Professor. Thank you so much, Jazakallah khair, for such an enlightening lecture. We were definitely able to relate and understand a lot regarding cognitive dissonance and Islamic psychology. And I'm really sorry for the inconvenience caused in the early starting of the session. And inshallah,
it's okay.
We'll
it's okay.
make
Don't
sure.
worry. Anyway, it's trial and tribulation. It's part of life, especially with technology. Don't worry.
Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, we'll make sure it's not repeated anymore next time. So now I'd like to invite Brother Abdullah bin Zafar to conclude today's webinar by Quran recitation, inshallah.
Okay, just before that, I just want to say Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Umar. Hello? We losing? Yeah.
Brother Abdullah?
It's Brother Abdullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها والنفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعثها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بهم فلا يخاف عقباها صدق الله العظيم.
Okay, this is a page of IOU courses which IOU offers. So for more details, you can contact Sister Reshma, and you can see all the courses written here. And for more details of the courses, you can contact Sister Reshma. She'll explain you all in details, inshallah. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Is the program done?